Hi, I'm David Kelley. I'm president and CEO of Chakana Copper. Chakana Copper is a junior company exploring in central Peru, the Soledad project. We've made a very exciting copper, gold, silver discovery on that project back in 2017, and we spent the last few years drilling out several of the high-grade Tourmaline Breccia pipes that host the mineralization there. And just a few weeks ago, we released an initial resource on 7 of the Breccia pipes with some very high grades hosted within those Breccia pipes. The important part of the stage of our company right now is that we've really just scratched the surface. We believe there's 50 to 100 of these Breccia pipes to be drilled, and we've got a really aggressive exploration program this year and next year planned to go out and test the upside potential of this project.
David, thank you. What a great introduction. We haven't officially met in person, but I believe I've seen you in the core shack at PDAC over the years. I've passed by and looked at some of your spectacular core there. In fact, you know these little scale bar things. I think I had one with the Chakana core on the back. I don't know where it's gone to. They do tend to get lost. But I know you've just put out your most recent resource, but could you just give me a quick background of how you came to the Soledad project and kind of go right back to 2017 and just kind of what attracted you to the area and what was the exploration thesis, what were you looking for at the time?
Yeah, so this is a project I went to in 2012, and as you know, in the industry, you know, every project you go to, every project you evaluate, you learn something from it. And we went in 2012 and looked at this project when I was with MMG, the predecessor company, before we started Chakana, and we were really attracted to, obviously the grades are very nice. These Tourmaline Breccia pipes are fascinating features. They're actually quite common globally. There's numerous Tourmaline Breccia pipe systems that have been documented. Many of those have been mined. They're oftentimes associated with porphyries, and that was really the interest in this particular project, was whether or not these Tourmaline Breccia pipes were underlain by a mineralized porphyry. We're in the Miocene belt of Peru, which is a very prolific mineral belt, both porphyry copper systems as well as skarns, as well as giant high sulfidation systems and low sulfidation systems. So we knew we were in elephant country, and the question was, is this thing linked to a porphyry at depth? At the time that we formed Chakana Copper, this was one of the first projects we went back to see if it was available, and part of the property position we have today was available. We signed up an agreement on that part of the property, and then we tripled our land position within the first year, and that was really instrumental in capturing the geologic opportunity, which is really about a 12 square kilometer footprint that encompasses these Tourmaline Breccia pipes.
Oh, interesting. And the Breccia pipes, were they known by local geologists, that they'd been picked up by prospecting beforehand? Presumably, they're interesting not just for the tourmaline, but because there was metal associated with them.
Yeah, that's right. And some of the Breccia pipes are really obvious features. They form what we call monument outcrops, because the Breccia pipes have been, replaced with silica and tourmaline, which is a resistant weathering mineral, as you know. So you oftentimes get a positive, outcrop that shows you exactly where the Breccia pipe is. The area has also been glaciated, though, and so some of the Breccia pipes are covered by glacial debris. You can often find boulder terrains associated with this, so you can follow those boulders back up to the source. And then we have blind Breccia pipes that did not reach the surface. These are not volcanic breccias. This is an important concept about the project, is these are not volcanic features. They're not diatremes. They didn't erupt at surface. They stopped when there was still probably 1 to 2 kilometers of rock overburden above them. And that has really important implications for the shape of the breccias. We know that some of the breccias are exposed at surface by uplift and weathering, and other breccias are not. We found, blind pipes in our drilling, so we know exactly what these things look like when they're not cropping out at surface. But certainly these breccias were known. I probably have talked to maybe 35 geologists that have been on these very breccias. And that was really during the time of the Pierina discovery, and everyone was blitzing up and down the Cordillera Negra looking for another Pierina or a high sulfidation gold system. So this caught their eye, but it was a different deposit style, so they didn't take too much interest in it.
So just in terms of the basic geology, you've got a kind of a porphyry intrusion, which is evolving and maturing and fractionating, and kind of you've got volatiles and metals kind of building up on the in the carapace or in the cupola of the porphyry. And at some point, boron-rich fluids with the tourmaline, for some reason they overcome the lithostatic pressure, the weight of the crust above them, and they pop up a little finger of a Tourmaline Breccia pipe, a high energy emplacement that rushes up, breaking rock and fragmenting itself and cooling as it goes, and it rises to a point where the forces can balance out, and so it doesn't go any further. It just kind of stops because it's got it's released the pressure from the porphyry below, and it's risen up to the point where it kind of the energy expends itself. Is that roughly kind of what you see?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you mentioned the core that you saw at PDAC. I mean, one of the most spectacular things about that drill core is the fact that we get what's called shingle breccias. And shingle breccias are flat tabular clasts that are laying in a fairly flat kind of arrangement like this. And the only way you can form something like that is if those clasts actually move downward. So I make the analogy that it's like a deck of cards. If you take a deck of cards and throw it up in the air, all of the cards are going to be laying flat on the ground. They're going to be all jumbled and mixed up. Some are going to get turned over, but they're all going to be flat lying. And that's exactly what happens in these breccia pipes. And so the volatile buildup that you were talking about as the intrusion is crystallizing, that's holding space that once that pressure is released, that's open space. And so there's an explosion and a brecciation of the rock column above that zone, and then it actually falls down. And we have very detailed stratigraphic control in our stratigraphy that tells us that the amount of downward displacement is about 100 meters. And so you can imagine lots of open space because the rock has broken. It's fallen back down into this pipe-like column of broken rock, and a great host rock for hydrothermal fluids, the fluids that are actually carrying the metals, to come in and impregnate and cement that broken rock. And that's why we get some of the really spectacular mineralized breccia textures that we have at Soledad.
That's exactly what I've seen. I've seen kind of sulfide matrix, a matrix of sulfides, chalcopyrite principally, in the bits that you're showing us. With these angular clasts or kind of broken rock kind of falling back down and kind of packed in, surrounded by these copper minerals. I mean, it's really spectacular. Now you mentioned, I before the interview, I went back through some kind of your older MDMA, my goodness, MDNAs, to just kind of get a feeling for the kind of the history of the work that you've done there in the last 4 years, and the kind of the pace of drilling. Now, can you tell me where you are on the property payments and kind of where you got to on? There were two that kind of jumped out at me. One was Soledad, and the other was Aija.
So there's three agreements that collectively forms what we call the Soledad project. It's about just over 3,000 hectare land position. And it captures this footprint of these Tourmaline Breccia pipes. The two original agreements were both 100% purchase option agreements, meaning we make payments, and when we make that final payment of the agreement, we own the property 100%. They both have a small royalty associated with them, half of which can be bought out in one case, 100% of which can be bought out in the other case. But that's a really important distinction, 100% ownership. It's not a 70-30 joint venture or anything like that. That was really important to us in terms of, creating value for our shareholders. The the final payment of the northernmost agreement that covers about 1/3 of the property is due in April. That's a $4.425 million payment, and then that's we own that property outright, which includes about 2/3 of the resources that we published to date sit on those grounds, and also a large number of targets that are untested also sits within that ground. And then we have a smaller payment in 2023. It's going to be, I believe, the final payment on that one's going to be about $1.5 million. And again, we own 100% of the property after that. That's where the Wankarama and Paloma East and Paloma West Breccias sit, which are currently in our resource, still open at depth. We know that we'll continue to add tons on all the Breccia pipes. But again, numerous targets within that property position there. The other agreement that's worth noting is on the southern half of the property, there are 3 large claims there that are held by Barrick of Peru. And as you know, Barrick's the largest gold producer in the world. And we have an exploration agreement with them. Again, 100% agreement. They do have a one-time back-end right if they like what we're doing and see the potential. Then they have a one-time right to back in. And if they don't, then we get the property 100% royalty position for them, part of which is can be purchased.
Okay. And yeah, you're okay for you've got the money to and the plan to kind of make all these payments. That's all covered.
We've got the plan. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're working on that now. I'm confident that we're going to cover those payments, and there's a variety of different ways of financing junior companies. Our chairman is a gentleman named Doug Silver, and Doug is known as Mr. Dealmaker in the industry. In all different forms of types of financings. He's an expert in royalties and streaming deals. He's done equity deals. He's done debt deals. He's educating me right now and all the different possibilities for us. But we're working on that. I'm confident we'll get it. We have some very strong shareholders in the company already. Very strong institutional shareholders. Goldfields, the 7th largest gold producer in the world, is an equity holder of the company and owns about 19.99% of the company. So, we've been very good at attracting very stable shareholders, long-term people that understand the mining industry. And, that's really important, as you know, because it's not an industry that happens overnight. There's huge gains to be made in the mining industry, especially in junior companies that are successful with making discoveries and delivering results. But it's oftentimes it's a complicated industry when you think about the political winds that change the world, all of those types of things. So
yeah. Tell me about it. I mean, at Salazar Resources, one of the things we struggle with is water permits and getting the drill access, and it's a slow process. It's equally slow in Peru, isn't it? You talked about, I think it was in June 2020, about getting drill permits announced, which was obviously a big deal. Was that kind of something that you'd waited a number of years for?
Yeah, that's right. That was on the north side. And that's the area that we're now fully permitted in that area. But we had about an 18-month delay in getting the permit for that central area, which is where Wankarama and Paloma East, Paloma West, and all those other targets exist. And the problem was that it had nothing to do really with bureaucratic process or any problems, other than the fact that the agency in the government that manages land ownership for taxation reasons had a private parcel of land on the north side incorrectly in the database as being owned by a community. And we showed them 20 years of tax records paid by this private individual that the government accepted the tax payments every year. We had all the documentation that this was privately owned land, and we actually had to convince the government that it was a mistake in their database, and then convince them to make the change. And that's what took so long. It was really frustrating. But we finally did get it changed. And once we got that change made, everything else flew through, quickly. So, that's an example of where you can run into an obstacle that, there's no, book on how to get around these things. You just have to have the right people, and you have to work hard, and you have to convince people that, the information you're providing them is reliable.
Could you pull up a map and just show me kind of where it is geologically, or kind of either a regional context or just a map of the concession area, just so I can kind of get a feeling for where the three property deals, or the three claim areas kind of sit next to each other.
Let me just go to my slide deck here. And it occurred to me too that when we were talking about the breccia textures and the shingle and the fluids coming into the property, the shape of the breccias and stuff like that, there's another really great slide in the deck that would be worth emphasizing at that point. Let me just go back here to.
I'll talk while you're hunting, but of the 100 breccia pipes that you've identified, how many have you tested? And how many of those, because I think you've tested somewhere between 13 or 16, I wasn't quite sure, or was it 9? I wasn't sure how many, but it was a relatively small percentage of the total. And I just wondered how much of the others haven't been tested because of land access or drill permits or geological knowledge, or what are the reasons for the other 80, 90 breccia pipes not to have been tested?
Yeah, okay, I can go through that. And most of it is that relates to our focus for the last year was to get the resource done. So we did a lot of drilling on these 7 breccia pipes that are part of the resource now. And the really important thing there was demonstration of concept. We wanted to demonstrate that these breccia pipes are attractive targets, that the high grade hangs together in a resource estimate. And, they came through, really strongly. I mean, the continuity is excellent. We get these zones of extreme grades. We've hit massive sulfide in these breccia pipes. And, and then that massive sulfide is surrounded by mineralization that's, multi-% copper or copper equivalent, really strong silver grades going with gold, going with copper. So, that's what you're really looking for when you're doing the resource. The initial resource is how well does the mineralization hang together? Is it something that potentially could be mined? What's the continuity like? What would grade control be like if you were mining something like this? So we learned a lot from that exercise, and I think that's really set the stage for us to advance the project more rapidly now, because really the story now is how many of these untested breccia pipes are going to yield similar results to what we've already received in the drilling we've done today. And if we can go out and bring home another 10 mineralized breccia pipes in our next exploration campaign, another 10 after that, then we're doubling, quadrupling the potential size of the resource. You have to keep in mind all the breccia pipes we've drilled to date are still wide open. We've not seen the bottom of a breccia pipe yet. And so that's a really important consideration for the upside potential as well.
Are you still pulling up a map?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to find the slide, and I need to go into presentation mode here. Let me get to this slide.
I'll keep chatting while you're
yeah,
hunting.
Please do. I'm just about there.
It feels to me that you've talked about it quite often, that there's a grade. There's an enrichment process in the upper portion of these breccia pipes when they get close to the erosional surface, and that's reflected in the grade of your open pittable resource being higher than your underground resource. And really, I'll come on to it, but really the key thing for me will be grades per vertical, tons per vertical meter, in these kind of narrow vertical structures. But let's focus on the slide that you've got up at the moment, which is the Aija Tikapamba district.
Yeah.
So go on. Can you just talk me through the where the three different holdings are and where you focused on your the work, and I can see those, and where next?
Yeah, so this is a district map, and this is a good place to start. Our land position is shown by the black outline on the left side, near where the red oval is. So the black outline is a 3,000 hectare land position, and the red oval is the footprint of the Tourmaline Breccia pipes that we've identified to date. And again, it's an area of about 12 square kilometers. It's roughly 3 by 4 kilometers. And within that, there are the Breccia pipes, and the Breccia pipes are in various states of exposure. You get really obvious Breccia pipes that are sticking out of the ground, as I mentioned earlier. You get some that are subcropping or partially covered, and then you get completely blind Breccia pipes. But we went back and looked the other day. We have very, very detailed outcrop mapping here, and we went back and counted up the number of Tourmaline Breccia outcrops on the property, and there's 103 of them. That's not to say that each one of those outcrops represents a separate individual Breccia pipe. But that's just the sheer number of outcropping breccias that we have on the property. We, have traditionally counted 24 really obvious Breccia pipes that stick out of the ground, and then we get things that are show really intense alteration that we only see peripheral to a Breccia pipe. It's exposed at surface. It has anomalous geochemistry. It has anomalous geophysical responses, but there's not Breccia exposed. And that's those are the Breccia pipes that are just very close to surface. If we were to drill down 10, 20, 30 meters, most likely in most of those cases, we would be into Breccia. It's the altered wall rock around the Breccia pipe that's also more resistant to weathering, that tells us that we're very, very close to the Breccia pipes. And then we have, the blind signature, the geophysical signature, and I've got a great slide that shows that as well, of what the blind Breccia pipes look like, or the blind targets that we have, and they mimic exactly the signature that we see from the known drilled out Breccia pipe. So we have a really good laboratory, if you will, for testing new methods, figuring out what works, optimizing it, and then applying it across the rest of the property. But to get back to this slide here, this is the Aija Tikapampa district. It's mostly known for high-grade veins and mantos being mined out to the east of our property. And these are historical mines. There's actually Spanish workings in the district. Many of these mines have been operated going on, 100 years. There are 4 active mines in the district. There's 2 concentrate plants in the district. Access is really exceptional because we're just south of the Piarina mine here, and there's really excellent infrastructure in this part of Peru. These mines operate on grid power. There's plentiful water. Because mining has been going on for so long here, the locals understand what mining is all about. All of our local labor comes from local communities near our project, and it's one of the reasons we've been very successful in our community relations program and in our ESG program is working with people that already understand mining kind of as an outset.
Do you have access across the whole? I mean, can you walk freely? Can you drill across the whole area? I mean,
so what's been permitted, if you see this blue line that goes through here, and this is a major fault, but it's also a valley bottom. And everything on the north side of that is permitted and open for drilling. And we estimate there's around 60 targets on the north side that we've defined, and then there's about another 40 on the south side that we've defined. And those numbers are changing because we're still doing geophysics on the property right now. We're doing offset IP, which is a form of 3D IP, and that's in follow-up to a gradient array IP survey that covers really the heart of the mineralized part of our property position there, shown in the red oval. So it's wide open for drill testing. Anything on the north side, we think we're probably 8 to 10 months. We'll get the permit on the south side this year. It's one that we've been working on for about a year and a half, and we're getting close. We've hit a number of milestones recently in that permit. So we're, really the plan this year would be to test the top 20 targets on the north side, and then in 2023 go down and test the top 20 targets on the south side. And if our target testing is as successful as it has been, we should be able to bring anywhere from 15 to 20 new mineralized breccia pipes into the story and line those up. Those would need to be drilled out, initially from an inferred resource standpoint. But we really want to show the scalability, the size potential of this project now. We know that the breccia pipes hang together nicely, and now it's really step back. How big can this system be?
Just a quick question on the you say it's 18 months or so to get the drill permits for the southern side of the Hercules Fault. Is that water permits? Is it environmental permits? Is it community dialogue? Is it bureaucracy? Is it COVID? Is it the change in the change in government? What takes the time?
I'll just say yes to everything you said.
It's a Latin American thing.
Yeah. So start with a very bureaucratic process, right? Everything has to be notarized, stamped, signature, goes up the flagpole, another notary, another stamp. Very bureaucratic process to start with. Every time there's an administration change, and you have to remember there were 3 presidents in 1 year in Peru, right? And every president installed their own cabinet, and those people were shown the door when the new president came in. And so anytime you have administration changes, you always get changes in personnel, and sometimes you get people that come into the job and they know what the job is and they get right to it. Other times they don't know the job and they're having to learn. So that's a bit frustrating. Whenever you have a lot of political turnover, it can lead to delays. But that's been going on since 2017. That's really nothing new. The bureaucratic process, it's there. Now, COVID did throw a wrench in the spokes for sure, because suddenly people, it was a lot more difficult to conduct business when you had people trying to work from home. And so it took the government about 3 months to get set up for people to have laptops and to people to have a secure system environment to work. And to be able to conduct business with the mining industry. And so we regularly have Zoom meetings now with regulators. A lot of the things that were holding us up before have been dealt with as a result of COVID. So that's actually an improvement on things. But we're moving ahead. We've made great progress. And we'll have that permit on the south side this year. In the meantime, we have plenty of work to do. We have over 60 targets on the north side that haven't been tested yet, and that's fully permitted. So we'll get after that work this year, and we'll still only test a third of the targets that are there, and then the plan would be in the next year to go south.
Okay, so let's just kind of focus on what you're aiming to deliver to investors and shareholders, because growth is so critical for exploration companies. They want to see great mineralized intersections, grams and meters, or percent and meters. Do you think of these breccias as being 2% copper ore bodies, as a rule of thumb? Do you look at them and say, all right, the top 50 or the top 100 meters is a 2% target? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, certainly 2% is a great grade to shoot for. We have, like, Breccia 1 is better than that. I think Breccia 1, if I recall correctly, it's 2.3 or 2.4 copper equivalent. Others are 1.5 to 1.8 type of thing. I still think the overall copper equivalent grade. If you look at the resource, is right at about 1.8, and that's, you know, combining the open pit resources with the underground resources. So, you know, that's a great grade. I mean, if you look at the copper projects in that have resources, that new copper projects, there's about 49 of them globally, and, you know, 90% of those are 0.5% and less, right? I mean, super low grade. So our grades are 4 to 5 times higher than the normal copper project that's out there. Smaller footprint, but then you know, they're in, again, you know, having a smaller footprint is it's a good thing. It's a good thing from an environmental standpoint. It's a good thing from a social standpoint. Smaller high grade deposits typically require much lower capex to develop and that type of thing. So we like to be in the high grade game, and we also like having precious metals going with the copper, because our investors get exposed to, you know, to all 3 metals, and I think that's a good thing.
And can you just remind me how far the open pits were pulled down on those Breccia pipes?
Yeah, just, I've got another great slide here.
I know it'll vary from thickness to thickness and grade to grade, but you know, are you talking kind of a pull down of 50 meters or 100 meters, or just kind of as a guide? In
general, they go down about 100 meters. Yeah. Okay. That was a real interesting learning from the resource estimate, is that all the Breccia pipes, we were able to put an optimized pit on all of the Breccia pipes in the resource. They're very small pits. You know, they go down to roughly about 100 meters depth, but they take out the top part of the Breccia pipes, and then they put you in a position where you can go underground from there. We have, you know, the fortune of being on a hillside that's, I call it moderately steep. You know, it's probably about something like that. And you can come in from the valley bottom and drive an adit straight into the hillside and intersect these Breccia pipes, you know, 200, 300, 400 meters below surface, depending on how, you know, which Breccia pipe you're going after. And so from that level, you can mine up, you know, towards the open cut that would be at the surface, and allow the ore to be brought down, you know, using gravity in your favor and that type of thing. And you can go in and develop, you know, multiple Breccia pipes at the same time. You don't have to just focus on one individual Breccia pipe. So, you know, from an engineering standpoint, the engineers love this project because of all the different options that, you know, it presents to them.
The challenge will always be tons per vertical meter, because if you've got a small footprint, or if you've got a small pipe, and you've got to develop on multiple pipes, that's the key challenge. And so really, has the geophysics in the northern part of the area, or indeed on the south, but since you're going to be targeting the north this year, has the geophysics highlighted any kind of pipes which have got a bigger dimension? And again, it might not do, just because of the nature of the formation process that we talked about right at the start. But I just wonder, you know, have you got any indications through the geophysics of either a kind of a cluster like you've got at Huancarama, or a bigger pipe, a bigger diameter? I mean, obviously, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, but before we go there, I mean, the mining engineers, these pipes are big enough to mine. There is no issue with these pipes being too small. Even the smaller pipes that are 40 meters in diameter, the mining engineers say those are plenty big enough to mine. Don't worry about that. If that pipe has grade, we will mine it. Sure, the bigger pipes are better. You know, Breccia 1, Breccia 5, and Huancarama are kind of 60 to 100 meter type of footprint. They're huge. They're very big pipes. And if you look at if you think the other thing, and we've had 3 different mining engineers, including Goldfields, weigh in on this. You know, the preferred mining technique for these types of Breccia pipes is sub-level mining. That's the most common underground mining technique in the world. Many mines operate in Peru on the order of 2,000 or 3,000 tons per day. The block model that we've just put together, and it's in the figure in the news release, and I can bring it up here. The blocks are 5 by 5 by 10 meters. Okay, there's 720 tons in each one of those blocks. And if you mine 3 of those blocks per day in a 24-hour shift, you just hit your 2,000 tons per day. Yep. Okay, so the mineability of these breccia pipes has been looked at in detail by Goldfields and by a number of other mining engineers that we brought in, and they conclude the same thing. The mineability of these breccia pipes is exceptional. Mining, you can mine two pipes at the same time, or you can mine two different levels. You can come in mid height on the mountain, and you can come in at the valley bottom and have two different operating faces on a single breccia pipe. Again, there's lots of flexibility here, but we are definitely targeting bigger tonnage type of things. But the size of the breccia pipes is not an issue. The grades, as long as the grade's there, these things will make money. And the mining technique is nothing new. It's a standard underground mining technique.
That's interesting, because the market was disappointed, I think, with the resource tonnage. Your share price. I know it's been a tough time in the markets, but and of course that will have weighed on everyone's share price. But I think the market was disappointed with the tonnage figure that you put out.
Well, there was certainly some of that, and our goal had been 10 million tons at 2%. I'm convinced, the 10 million tons is there. If we would have drilled deeper, I mean, if you look at Breccia 1, high grade copper right at the bottom of that of where we drilled. So all the pipes are open. We can add tons just by simply drilling deeper. It makes more sense to do deeper drilling from underground, and we know that, and we know we can add tons by finding more breccia pipes, and we will be targeting larger breccia bodies. And the geophysics, to get back to your previous point, absolutely, we see those types of larger breccia signatures. Now that we have the data and we understand the system and how the resources stack up and that type of thing, we will be going after larger tonnage type of thing. But also, on the share price thing, we had a lot of investors that got in, and they were hanging out for the first resource, good or bad. And they had been invested for 2 years, 3 years, and they were hoping that things would go well and the share price would go up. It's unfortunate that the market, the status of the market at the time that we put that out, there's a lot of fear in the market right now. There's a lot of concern about what's happening globally, politically. And so it's unfortunate that that's unfolding right now, but we had investors that were going to hang out and, and sell no matter what. So I know that there was a significant amount of that. I can tell you that from the institutional side of things, and our shareholders, that understand mining and know it's a long-term industry, they're happy with the result. Sure, it would have been nice to have 10 million tons, but this story has always been about what's the real upside potential. We didn't expect to come out and have a one resource and that was it. We want to quadruple the resource. We want to go out and bring in another 10 or 15. We actually think that this can be a tier 1 asset. If we find mega breccia sitting beneath these breccia pipes, and we see evidence of those types of features happening, if we see mineralized intrusions associated with these breccia pipes, anything can happen. I mean, we're right in the heart of a big 150 square kilometer mineral district. We're on the heat engine side of it. We know where the copper and the gold is, and we've got high grade breccia pipes that have formed on top of an intrusion that we've never seen yet. So I'm super excited about the upside potential. I
mean, when you see the core, when you look at those that intersection, it just looks so beautiful. A couple of questions. Have you intersected any barren tourmaline breccia pipes?
Yes, we have. Yep, we've seen barren breccia pipes. We've seen, I guess, in terms of grade, we've seen barren breccia pipes. We drilled breccias 3 east and 3 west, and I've got a great slide here that I'll bring up for you. Let me just get to that slide. So this is a three-dimensional diagram showing it's from Leapfrog. It shows the model breccia pipes that have been drilled in sufficient detail to to show the shape of the breccia pipe. All the ones that are labeled are in the resource. So Breccia 1, 5, 6, 7, Paloma East and West, and Juan Carama. But you'll see there's two other breccia pipes there in the middle. This is Breccia 3 East and 3 West. 3 East is huge. It has a diameter of about 100 meters. It's a giant breccia pipe. It has pyrite crystals in the drill core that are the size of your fist. It's just remarkable. And so it's a pyrite dominant breccia pipe. It does have some zones that run good grade copper, so we know we've got to chase those things out. But we don't know what this represents. One of our advisors that came in said, this might be the equivalent of a pyrite halo in a porphyry system, which is a very distinct feature that you see. Usually the copper is inside of the pyrite halo. And so that might just be a matter of drilling that pipe deeper and getting to a deeper extent, again, going deeper, closer to the heat source. And we may see that transitions into copper mineralization. But none of the breccia pipes, all of them have sulfides. It's just a question of what's the tenor of the sulfides. Are they chalcopyrite dominant or are they pyrite dominant? But most of the ones we've drilled so far are chalcopyrite dominant.
Okay, and how far how deep have you gone? And do the geophysics show any signals of a mega breccia or the top of a porphyry?
Yeah, we've got a great slide here, and I'm just going to forward. That's the resource estimate there. This is the block model I was talking about, and each one of those blocks being 720 tons. This is on Breccia 1. But let me get to the geophysical slide. This is the technique that we do two different geophysical techniques. One's called gradient array, and it's a great mapping technique. It identifies the structural corridors that host the breccia pipes. And the map on the left shows the gradient array result. All of those long linear red features are productive corridors that host the known breccia pipes. And within those corridors, we can then cherry pick out where we think the breccia pipes are. Many of the breccia pipes, again, are outcropping, so we know exactly where they are. But on the right is a different technique. It's the offset or 3D IP. You get essentially a three-dimensional block model of resistivity. And you can see in Breccia 7, it just highlights the breccia pipe exactly. Okay.
Nice.
If you look at the three figures below, and it's showing three different things from the same area, same profile: chargeability, resistivity, and a metal factor, which is a combination of those two. You see a beautiful blind breccia pipe target. Okay, that represents one that hasn't made it to surface yet. We haven't drilled this yet. We have numerous targets like this on the property, in addition to all the other targets that we have generated from other data sets like surface geochemistry and that type of thing. But here's a really interesting example from our 3D IP. This shows the Juan Carama breccia pipe, Paloma East and Paloma West, all three of which are already in the resource estimate. They're all open at depth. But the metal factor, which is, again, is a combination of chargeability and conductivity, shows that these signatures from the breccia pipes is merging at depth. They're actually coming together. And so this is a very exciting feature. This suggests that the breccia pipes are like the fingers on your hand. The individual breccia pipes are the individual fingers, but as you go deeper, they coalesce into a much larger feature that we're calling mega breccias. And that's really one of the concepts we're going to be going after. We know if we can hit one of those mega breccias, it'll just light up this project. I mean, you can get 50 million tons out of a 300 meter mega breccia of that kind of scale. And so we are focusing on larger targets.
How many of those targets have you got to drill this in this next program? How many mega breccias are you looking at?
Well, I don't know the number for that. We've been running the 3D offset IP for 3 months now. We've still got 2 more months to finish it off. Okay. We in our timeline of 2022, at the end of March, we'll have a targeting session where we'll pull all of that new data into That, the other thing is the south side. The south side potential is enormous as well. And I don't know if you've seen the geochemical anomaly we have on the south side. It's one of the most impressive gold soil anomalies I've seen in my career. And I'm a geochemist by training. I've done hundreds and hundreds of surveys. It's a gold molybdenum anomaly that's 1.3 kilometers by about 800. Sorry, yeah, 1.3 kilometers by 800 meters. It's enormous, and we've never put a drill rig into that thing yet. It's a different target. It's at surface. It's obviously bulk mineable type of target as opposed to the high grade breccia pipes. We also have the high grade breccia pipes on the south side as well, and we'll be drill testing those. But we do have some very large scale targets that we will be testing. Some are mega breccias, some are these extremely anomalous metals that sit on top of intrusions, and so we have a lot of exploration. Like as I mentioned, the upside potential is really enormous.
Well, thank you. That's really fascinating. And so the targeting session at the end of the geophysical survey will be done in March. So you'll probably be reporting on that in April or May. Yeah. And then you're going to go into a drilling phase on the northern portion of the license area. Is that correct? That's correct. Yeah. Well, we're going to target the entire property so that everything is. We've already done that once. That's where the 110 original targets comes from, and of that, we've tested 16 of those. 10 of those are breccia pipes that either are in the resource or need additional drilling to get into the resource. And then, the other 6 would be ones that are like Breccia 3 East and West. Interesting, need more work, but we're going to park those for now. And we'll move on to other targets. It really is about, getting, doing all the hard work to get all the information you need to properly rank the targets. And, we have a multi-disciplinary approach to ranking. We score everything. We bring all the different data sets that we have in. Size potential is one of our ranking criteria that, is going to help us sort out targets for testing. It is tough because, as I mentioned, the breccia pipes actually, because they didn't reach surface, they actually come to a point. And a great example of this was Paloma East. Paloma East had a surface outcrop of 25 meters, but 150 meters below surface, it had a diameter of 100 meters. It was literally shaped like a cone. And as you got deeper, it got bigger. So, you have to take that into consideration as well. It's not, that's again where the geophysics should really help us. Well, David, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing the results of the geophysical targeting, the targeting exercise at the end of the geophysics, kind of the reworked targets, and then into the drill program. Lovely grades, really interesting geology. I look forward to seeing how your exploration project or program pans out in the course of the year. Well, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.